You're smart enough to make it on your own. As I stand in the foyer of what was once my father's business, his words continue to reverberate in my mind. As the CEO of Mitchell Industries' largest rival, not the kicked-up daughter, I'm here at the age of 28 to attend the board meeting that will decide the company's future. 10 years ago, my parents made it apparent where I belonged in the family hierarchy. My name is Sarah Mitchell. It was the day following my graduation from high school. I was holding my Stanford admission letter with hope after finishing my valedictorian address. At that point, they informed me that my younger sister Emma would be attending Harvard instead, using my college funds. My mother had stated, "Emma needs more support than you do." Without looking directly at me, Harvard has long been her desire. But she has always suffered academically. "Sarah, you'll find a solution, you always do." I recall standing in our kitchen, the same space where I'd gotten my early admission letter and where I'd spent many evenings assisting Emma with her math assignments. Even though my life was falling apart all around me, the morning sun shining through the windows made everything appear surprisingly bright and normal. "But what about Stanford?" With little more than a whisper, I asked. "What about my dreams?" My father had laughed and said, "Stanford? Sarah, exercise common sense. We are unable to pay for both of you to attend college. And Emma, well, Emma is more in need of this chance. You'll find a way because you're resourceful." With a little grin on her lips, Emma had been standing in the corner, inspecting her just-painted nails. The lovely one, the social butterfly, the one who required continual encouragement and approval. She had always been their favorite. I, on the other hand, was the trustworthy, accountable, and assumed person. My father had added, "You have until the end of the week to move out," as though he had just realized he needed to get rid of me. "We'll need your room for Emma's Harvard prep tutor." My mind was already buzzing with ideas and possibilities as I packed my things that night with mechanical accuracy. One important lesson I learned from them was that I had to rely only on myself. I vowed to not just survive, but to flourish as I packed my books and folded my clothes. I had a flawless GPA, a persistent mind, and $3,000 saved from my part-time work at the local library. It must be sufficient. The initial months were the most difficult. I took on 3 jobs: weekend work at a 24-hour diner, afternoon receptionist at a small software firm, and morning shifts at a coffee shop after finding a modest studio apartment in the most dangerous area in town. Education continued to be my first focus, but sleep became an unaffordable luxury. Digital Dynamics, a tech business, ended up being my salvation. I remained late to read their code manuals during my breaks, which was noted by Catherine Torres, the CEO. She summoned me to her office one evening. She remarked, "Sarah, I've been watching you," as her keen eyes assessed me. "You possess a unique quality. How do you want to study while making money?" Everything changed after that talk. Catherine turned become the much-needed mentor I needed. She taught me perseverance and strategic thinking in addition to business and technology. I gained knowledge in project management, coding, and, above all, how to use hardship to your advantage under her tutelage. In the meantime, I was informed about Emma's Harvard life through my family's sporadic social media updates. These updates included fancy outfits, sorority parties, and spring vacations in Europe, all of which were paid for with money that should have gone toward my education. Facebook posts from my parents raved about their brilliant daughter at Harvard. But I was left out, unfollowed, and forgotten. But I was constructing, not resentful. At Digital Dynamics, I progressed from receptionist to junior developer throughout the day. At night, I completed online classes, obtained certifications, and gradually expanded my expertise. I learned how to network, see possibilities, and look ahead thanks to Catherine's essential coaching. I made my first breakthrough after 2 years. I found a technique to use AI to optimize supply chain management during a late-night coding session, which has the potential to completely change how businesses run their logistics. Not only did Catherine support me in developing it, but she also made an investment in it. The check she wrote out made my hands quiver, "This is your ticket, Sarah," she added. "Show them what you can do." I established Mitchell Analytics under Catherine's mentorship and early funding. I purposefully chose the name because I wanted people to understand precisely who I was and what I was capable of. Living on coffee and ramen noodles, working 20-hour days, and sleeping on an office couch made the first year extremely difficult. However, the algorithm was successful. It did better than it did. Big businesses began to pay attention. As our clientele expanded, so did our standing. 5 years after being expelled from my boyhood home, I was managing a prosperous computer business with more than 50 workers. Catherine brought her contacts and knowledge to my board of directors. My family never contacted me, and I never contacted them. After earning a degree in art history from Harvard, Emma accepted an executive position specifically designed for her at Mitchell Industries, our father's business. They portrayed a father, mother, and daughter together to create their legacy on social media, creating the ideal business family. They were blind to the fact that their legacy was already in disarray. By depending on antiquated procedures and enduring connections, Mitchell Industries has failed to innovate. They were too arrogant to acknowledge that their stock prices had been falling continuously for years. My father was too rigid to change, and Emma's pricey Harvard degree had not equipped her for the true demands of running a business. I painstakingly built my own empire while seeing their company's struggles from a distance. Mitchell Analytics branched up into predictive analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. We were transforming how companies functioned in the digital era, not just managing supply chains. Then the moment arrived that I had been subconsciously anticipating for years. Robertson Manufacturing, Mitchell Industries' largest client, was searching for innovative ways to update its business practices. Through recommendations from the industry, they discovered Mitchell Analytics. I sat across from Thomas Robertson, the CEO of Robertson, in our modern conference room, presenting our ideas with the assurance that comes from believing you're the greatest at what you do without seeing the link. He said, "Ms. Mitchell, following my presentation, your systems are just what we need. However, I must inquire, is there any connection to Mitchell Industries?" I slowly looked into his eyes. Yes, in fact. My father is James Mitchell. His expression was one of astonishment. "Really? He has never said." I said, "I'm sure he hasn't." With ease. "We haven't spoken in 10 years. More meetings resulted after that one. In addition to signing a contract with us, Robertson Manufacturing introduced us to other significant industry participants. We were able to gain some of Mitchell Industries' most important clients in a matter of months. I'm standing in the Mitchell Industries lobby now, adjusting my expensive suit, which is very different from the cheap clothing I was wearing when I was expelled. The receptionist, who obviously does not recognize the visitor's badge name, glances up at me. Why would she? The other Mitchell daughter is not mentioned, and there are no pictures of me on these walls. "Miss Mitchell," she announces, "the boardroom is ready for you." My father's office is on the top floor, the same location where he frequently told Emma that she was destined to take over the family company. I nod and ride the elevator to the top floor. I don't miss the irony. As I go in, the boardroom becomes quiet. Emma almost drops her phone, and my father's face turns pale. My mother seemed to have seen a ghost while attending the meeting as a significant shareholder. My father is able to say, "Sarah." "Hello, Dad," I say in a firm voice. "I believe we're here to discuss the future of Mitchell Industries." What I say doesn't carry the weight of the situation. What is left unsaid does. The prodigal daughter is coming to show them precisely what they threw away, not to plead for acceptance. As I prepared to give our terms, I opened my laptop. They believed that they were abandoning me 10 years ago. They had no idea that they were making me start my own fire. Shall we begin? Mitchell Industries' boardroom has not altered in a decade. The area was dominated by the same mahogany table. The walls were decorated with oil portraits of previous business presidents, and there was a pervasive sense of entitled superiority. However, the balance of power had shifted. I think we should talk about this conflict of interest before we start. my father remarked, trying to gather himself. I opened my presenting materials with a smile. Dad, what kind of dispute would it be? The fact that I lead Mitchell Analytics as its CEO? Or that I am your daughter, the one you expelled 10 years ago? Emma squirmed on her expensive chair uneasily. She was absolutely out of her depth, well manicured and dripping with premium goods, just like she had seemed in her most recent social media photos. This is a private family matter, my mother said, her voice tense with nervousness. Perhaps we should clear the room. Actually, I said quietly, this is a business meeting, and everyone here needs to hear what I'm about to say. I turned to speak directly to the board members. It's failing, Mitchell Industries. Over the last 3 years, your revenue has decreased by 40%, according to your quarterly reports. The contracts with your main clients, Bradford Industries, Turner Corp., and Robertson Manufacturing, have all been terminated in favor of more creative alternatives, solutions that my business offers. The board members looked at each other. These were entrepreneurs seeing the demise of their investments, not devoted members of the family. Now, I added, navigating to my presentation's first slide, I have a suggestion that could be able to salvage this business. Mitchell Analytics is willing to combine with Mitchell Industries in order to modernize operations, stabilize market position, and protect employment. Absolutely not. My father's face became crimson as he burst. Our family has owned this business for 3 generations. I will not allow you to. I firmly looked into his eyes and said, let me what, Dad? Save it? Your stubbornness, your refusal to innovate, and your insistence on putting Emma in charge of departments she's not qualified to run have brought this company to the brink of collapse. Emma was able to speak at last. That's not fair. I've worked hard. I turned to her and said, have you? Tell me, Emma, what was your solution to the supply chain crisis last quarter? Because from what I hear, you suggested hiring more manual labor to track inventory in 2025. Her face flushed, and she went quiet. Now, the board members were listening intently, with a few taking notes. One of them said, Ms. Mitchell, what exactly are you proposing? To go on to the next slide, I clicked. A complete digital transformation. Mitchell Analytics would absorb Mitchell Industries, implementing our AI-driven systems across all operations. We'd retain 85% of the current workforce, retrain them on modern systems, and position the merged company as a leader in technological innovation. Another member of the board looked at my father and said, and what happens to current leadership? My father would be offered a position as chairman emeritus, an advisory role that honors his legacy while allowing for necessary changes. I stopped and added, Emma would be welcome to stay with the company, but in a position better suited to her qualifications. My mother murmured, this is blackmail, but her voice was trembling, indicating that she was afraid. No, Mom, this is business. I got up and moved toward the window that provided a view of the city. 10 years ago, you all decided I wasn't worth investing in. You took my college fund, gave it to Emma, and told me to make it on my own. Well, I did. And now I'm offering you the same chance you never gave me, a way forward. As the ramifications became clear, the boardroom fell quiet. My father's knuckles were white and his hands were balled into fists. I could see tears welling up in Emma's eyes as she stared at her laptop screen. Adding, the offer stands for 48 hours. After that, Mitchell Analytics will proceed with our expansion plans, which include absorbing your remaining clients and establishing ourselves as the dominant force in this market. Your choice. Now my father's voice was low, almost begging Sarah, we're family. Feeling the weight of 10 years of rejection and perseverance, I turned back to him. No, Dad. We stopped being family the day you decided Emma deserved a future, and I didn't. Now, we're just business people making business decisions. I packed up my belongings and got ready to go. My team will send over the detailed proposal within the hour. I suggest you read it carefully. Your shareholders certainly will. Emma broke the silence as I was about to go to the door. Wait, how? How did you do it? How did you build all this? I stopped. And for the first time in years, I actually looked at my sister. I recognized the face behind the nice clothing and flawless makeup. Dread. It was the same anxiety I experienced when I realized I had nothing 10 years ago while standing in our kitchen. I did it by working harder than you've ever had to, I said simply. By learning from every rejection, every setback, every night I spent sleeping on an office floor. I did it because I was unable to pay the rent. Because the most important lesson I learned from your parents was that I could only rely on myself. As I took the elevator down to the foyer, I was met by an overwhelming quiet after leaving the boardroom. Catherine sent me a message on my buzzing phone, asking how everything went. Just as planned. I piped up with a smile. Just like they didn't see me coming 10 years ago when they believed they were solving a problem, but were actually generating their largest rival. They didn't see it coming either. The finest retaliation isn't always about getting even. Sometimes it's about surpassing the person who wronged you to the point that they must look up to see you. Mitchell Industries' destiny would be decided over the course of the following 48 hours. But I had already won. I had created something that they were unable to take away, ignore, or give to Emma. Rather, I had constructed myself. I expected pandemonium, and that's precisely what happened over the following 24 hours. My phone was always buzzing with calls from industry connections, board members, and eventually family members who were attempting to take back control of a situation that had long ago slipped from their grasp. Emma's name appeared on my computer while I was studying the most recent market forecasts at my Mitchell Analytics office. Finally, after a decade of quiet, she was making contact. I waited for it to ring twice before responding. Her voice was smaller than it had been in the boardroom, and she said, "Sarah." I looked at my watch and asked, "Can we talk, please?" She was, of course. "I have 15 minutes. I'm outside your building." Emma had always been impulsive and expected everyone to work around her timetable. However, I was intrigued enough to concur. "Come up. Tell reception you're expected." Emma entered my office 5 minutes later. The dark shadows beneath her eyes and the slight trembling of her hands were visible despite her luxury clothing. She surveyed the contemporary furnishings, the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the view of the city that people had worked so hard to get. She exclaimed, "This is impressive," as she sank into a chair across from my desk. "What do you want, Emma?" My bluntness made her wince. She hesitated, plucking at her manicured nails, a nervous habit from childhood, and added, "I've been up all night thinking about everything, about what you said in the boardroom. You're right. I'm not qualified for my position. I never was." Leaning back, I examined her. I hadn't known an entitled sister like her. "Go on." "Dad, he never made me work for anything. Harvard was a joke. I barely attended classes, but they passed me anyway because of his donations. Every job I've had at the company was created for me. I don't actually know how to do anything. And you're telling me this. Why?" She said, "Because I'm scared," in a voice that cracked. "The board is meeting again tonight. They're going to vote on your proposal, and I know they're going to accept it. Dad's been screaming at his lawyers all day, but there's nothing they can do. You've won." I had a fleeting feeling of comprehension, not quite sympathy. "This isn't about winning, Emma. It's about business. The company is failing because of outdated practices and poor management. My proposal will save it by getting rid of me, by putting people in positions they're qualified for." I corrected, "Including you, if you're willing to learn." Startled, she glanced up. "What do you mean?" I moved the folder I had made the previous evening across the desk and took it out. A real position. Entry-level marketing associate. No special treatment, no executive title. You'd start at the bottom, learn the business properly, and advance based on merit. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the folder. "You give me a chance after everything?" "I'm not giving you anything. I'm offering you an opportunity to earn something for yourself, for once." She studied the job description in silence for a long time. "The salary. It's a fraction of what I make now." It's more than I made when I started, when I was sleeping on an office couch because I couldn't afford rent. Those words lingered between us like a weight. Emma glanced up at last, her eyes welling with tears. I never apologized for taking your college fund, for watching them kick you out. I was so caught up in getting what I wanted. I never thought about what it cost you. No, you didn't, I said in a neutral tone. But this isn't about apologies, Emma. It's about choices. You can keep clinging to a position you don't deserve, or you can choose to earn your place. Your decision. A message from one of my connections on the Mitchell Industries board said, "Emergency meeting called," and my phone rang before she could reply. Voting is currently taking place. The board's meeting early, I informed Emma of. You should go. Holding the folder to her breast, she stood up. Sarah, for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. What you've built here, it's incredible. Thank you. But I didn't build it for your pride. I built it despite your rejection. When she was gone, I went to the window and gazed at the skyline of the city. Another part of this drama was about to begin at the Mitchell Industries building, which I could make out in the distance. Once more, my phone buzzed. It was my dad this time. The board voted, he replied in a dejected tone. They've accepted your proposal. I know you've won, Sarah. You've taken everything I built. No, Dad, I saved everything you were destroying. The papers will be ready in the morning. He remained silent for a while. Your mother wants to have dinner to talk about everything. My response was, I have a company to run, maybe in a few weeks, once the merger is complete. I contacted Catherine, who had been my pillar of support during this whole ordeal, after I hung up. I informed her, it's done. The board accepted. She murmured, Congratulations, with warmth. How does it feel? I reflected about my father's call, Emma's visit, and the 10 years of labor that had brought me to this point. It feels right, not because of revenge, but because it's the right business decision. And the family drama. Emma might surprise us. She asked for a real job, one she'd have to work for. Catherine laughed. Like sister, she said. Maybe she's finally ready to learn from you. Maybe, I said. But first, we have a merger to manage. I glanced at the final family photo taken before I was expelled, which was still hidden in my desk drawer as I hung up the phone. We were all grinning and acting like the ideal family. The fakery had vanished, and in its stead was something unvarnished but genuine. I've come to the realization that sometimes losing a fake family is necessary to create something genuine, something earned, something that cannot be taken away. I was standing in the remodeled foyer of what was now Mitchell Analytics Global 6 months after the merger. Digital screens displaying current business analytics had taken the place of the antique oil paintings. Steel and glass have replaced the brass and wood. As they say, there was a sense of change. Emma had thrown herself into her entry-level role, surprising everyone. She proved that she was finally thinking outside herself by asking questions, staying late, and arriving early. She unveiled her first solo marketing campaign last week. She genuinely deserved it, even though it wasn't flawless. It had taken my dad longer to get used to it. He attempted to sabotage the changeover throughout the first month by holding onto his previous methods and authority. However, something changed when he witnessed how our modernization increased production in the first quarter. He now sat in the back and took notes like a student throughout the technological training sessions. My mother asked for a meeting when I was at my office going over the most recent quarterly reports. She stayed out of the way during the change, observing from the sidelines as her well-crafted family story fell apart and reformed into something surprising. I yelled, "Come in," as she knocked. Without the protective barrier of riches and prestige she had so long hid behind, she appeared older than I recalled and more fragile. "Sarah, I've been doing a lot of thinking. Have a seat." She sat with shaking hands adjusting her skirt. "I've been volunteering at a women's shelter," she remarked in an unexpected manner. "Teaching basic business skills, helping them build resumes. It's opened my eyes to how strong women can be when they're forced to stand alone." I waited for her to finish speaking. When we took your college fund, she went on. When we let you go, we thought we were doing what was best for the family. We thought Emma needed us more. We were wrong. She placed an envelope on my desk after taking it out. This is every penny of your college fund with interest. I've been saving it secretly. I picked up the envelope, but did not open it, saying, "It's not about the money. I know you don't need it now. It's about acknowledging what we took from you." She looked right into my eyes. "You're right. It's not about the money. It never was. I know that now. It was about believing in you, supporting you. We failed at that." I said, "You succeeded anyway. You built all this without us, despite us." Knowing the weight of those words, she nodded. Silently, she stated, "Your father and I are selling the house. It's too big, too full of memories of who we pretended to be. We found a smaller place, something more honest." I reflected on that property, the room they provided Emma's tutor, and the kitchen where they crushed my ambitions. Sometimes letting go is necessary for growth. "Like you let go of us?" "I didn't let go, Mom. You pushed me away. I just decided to fly instead of fall." She wiped a tear from her eye. "Catherine Torres, she was the mother I should have been to you, wasn't she? She was the mentor I needed when I had no one else. She taught me that success isn't about what you're given, it's about what you build." My mom straightened her shoulders and stood up. "Well, you've built something remarkable here." She paused. "If you're willing, I'd like to build something too. A relationship. A real one this time. Not based on expectations or appearances." Thinking about Emma's change, my father's late-blooming humility, and this moment of vulnerability from a woman who had spent decades hiding behind perfection, I pondered what she had said. Finally, I answered, "That would take time and work, real work from all of you." She declared, "We're ready. Emma's learning, your father's trying, and I'm finally seeing clearly." I got up and walked over to the window that looked out over the city. I saw both of us in the reflection, mother and daughter, past and present, shattered bonds and potential reconciliations. Sunday meal. I said not at the house, somewhere neutral. Bring Emma and Dad. We'll talk, really talk. Perhaps the first genuine smile I'd seen in years. Hers was genuine. "Thank you, Sarah." "Thank you, Sarah." I opened the envelope she gave me after she departed. A cashier's check from my initial education fund, interest, and something more were all within. It was a picture I had never seen. I gave the valedictorian address during my high school graduation. The very moment I gazed toward the future, youthful and optimistic, and oblivious to what lay ahead, had been filmed by someone. I placed the picture next to my most recent business award on my desk. Beyond retaliation or achievement, the difference between the two moments, the before and after, the discarded daughter and the influential CEO, told a tale. It was a tale about having faith in oneself when others don't. About creating something so powerful that anybody who tried to break you had to admit how strong you were. About leaving a legacy that was untouchable because you deserved every bit of it. As if realizing I needed her point of view, Catherine patted in at that precise moment. She said, "How are you doing?" I glanced at the girl in the picture, unaware that her entire life was about to fall apart. "I'm good," I answered. "Really good." Because that girl? She didn't just survive, she thrived. I've come to the realization that sometimes the finest retaliation is about improving rather than getting even. About creating something so amazing that those who didn't believe in you must live in the shadow of your achievement. If you're lucky, those shadows can occasionally turn into stepping stones to fresh opportunities. Something was earned, something tangible. My spouse passed away at the age of 48, and I am now 44 years old. We were married twice in the 20 long years that we were together. 12 years ago was the first, and 5 years ago, we were married and resumed our life together. He was diagnosed with cancer a few weeks ago, and shortly after, there was nothing we could do. He died. I was stunned at first, and it hurt a lot. But now I can face the reality with composure. As time went by, I was able to gradually accept it in my heart and look forward to moving on with my life while preserving the memories I shared with him. I can no longer spend time with him, yet I still miss him tremendously. I am a bit glad that he is sleeping soundly, but I doubt that I will ever find someone I can love as much as he does. I'm relieved that he's finally been freed from suffering because his condition looked to be agonizing, especially in the last several months. His funeral was finally over last week. My heart was filled with relief, yet I was also overcome with melancholy. To be honest, I didn't get along well with my husband's parents. It had been 8 years since we last spoke. My spouse once made the decision to break off contact with his family and promised never to talk to his parents again. His choice was made for a variety of reasons. His parents had no love or care for him. They simply regarded him as a way to get money. My spouse decided to cut off all contact with them as they did not conceal this. In addition, my husband's parents seemed to care more about his younger sister Cindy than they did for him, despite the fact that she had a history of alcoholism. Nevertheless, he gave his sister and parents his best effort. He genuinely cared about his family. However, my in-laws treated him coldly when we began dating since they did not appreciate his efforts. I started to comprehend his family's treatment of him over time. Despite my repeated advice to my husband to respect his own feelings more, he consistently excused his parents' behavior, claiming that I want to be kind because they're family. But once we started dating, he started to change. He no longer merely followed his parents' wishes, but also spoke his own thoughts. I said, "If your family treats you poorly, maybe they're not really the family you need." He became more and more unhappy with his parents as our relationship progressed, which caused them to argue. His parents tried to distance themselves from me since they were perplexed by his assertiveness and thought I was the cause of these changes. But instead of their plans succeeding, our relationship strengthened. To be honest, I never had a good connection with my in-laws. We were usually at odds. Our relationship steadily worsened as a result of their constant terrible behavior against us. Considering this history, I was very taken aback when Cindy and the in-laws attended the burial. We got into a heated argument and broke up the last time we saw each other. Since then, we had not communicated much, particularly with the in-laws, and our relationship remained chilly. Our relationship with the in-laws did not get better even after we got married, so we naturally avoided them. But one year, as a matter of civility, we accepted the in-laws' invitation to a Christmas dinner. However, this would eventually prove to be a grave error. Our relationship would further deteriorate as a result of the supper. Since the day we got there, they have only talked about his new company, constantly condemning it and thinking it will fail. We asked the in-laws about their criticism of my husband's business after the celebration. According to them, all they wanted was for him to face reality. Additionally, they cautioned, "You shouldn't follow your sister's example." In fact, Cindy had launched a comparable company following my husband's announcement of his endeavor. He was in the business of recycling plastics. He had a good idea and did market research, unlike Cindy. After a heated disagreement, we left the scene and agreed never to get in touch with them again. Since Cindy relied entirely on my husband's assistance and lacked his astute instincts, it was evident that her business had collapsed. We didn't hear from the in-laws for 8 years. They never contacted us or came to see us, even though they very likely knew my husband had cancer. But when they showed up to the funeral, I was horrified. I felt conflicted when I saw them for the first time in years. I watched them closely throughout the burial, but they didn't behave strangely. I was still curious as to why they had attended the funeral. They came up to me when it was ended, but I wasn't going to believe what they were saying. Calmly, I thanked them for their sympathies, but I also requested them to go since I didn't want any further participation. Even when my husband was still living, I had not desired a close relationship with them, so his passing just strengthened my sense that communication with them was futile. Then they stated they had something to discuss and stopped acting. I wanted to know what they wanted to talk about, so I urged them to wait until everyone had gone. I chose to listen to them outside the arena after everyone had left. Only my in-laws and I remained after Cindy and the others went without waiting. They clarified that they had considered going to see my husband when he was in the hospital, but had changed their minds because of how much terrible his condition had gotten. They didn't want to put him under any more stress. I didn't expect much from them, but their excuse that their kid was dying seemed rather weak. I made it clear that they didn't need to make any excuses and that I only wanted them to go right to the issue. I didn't have the energy to squander any more time after a hard day. My in-laws were obviously taken aback by my attitude, but I assumed it was a normal response. I received the impression that they had come primarily to bid their son, my husband, a befitting farewell. I'd also had a suspicion that one of their motivations was to talk about my husband's inheritance. As everyone should know by now, it was obviously obvious that I would be handling his affairs. It was a logical development because that was his wish and I had always been there for him. The paperwork was ready. I told them they had no rights at all when they brought up the topic. Everything was predetermined, and as soon as we learned of his sickness, all legal procedures were set up. I soon discovered that they were attempting to get Cindy involved in the company, but I wasn't going to tolerate that. After a moment of quiet, they inquired as to whether they may at least inherit some real estate if they were unable to take over the company. They said they wanted to buy our house, which we had spent a lot of time and energy developing. Since they didn't own any real estate, they'd apparently believed they could receive the house. The house was too large for me to live alone, they argued. In order to boost their income, they discussed their desire to move into our house and rent out their own. I was somewhat taken aback when I heard this proposition. It was very intolerable that after 8 years of not getting in touch with us, they abruptly showed up at the funeral and asked to move into the house we constructed. I was furious and shouted for them to go. The sight of them was unbearable to me. I already felt a great deal of rage at them, and I think they felt the same way about me because I had yelled at them twice previously. As soon as I spoke louder, they shot back, "We just want to have a calm discussion." However, I gave a chilly response. As a result, they stated, "You should show more respect to your elders." I rebutted right away. I criticized them for being disrespectful to the dead and for acting like vultures just after my husband had been laid to rest. When I turned down their polite request, they became irate. To make matters more complicated, they threatened to sue for my husband's estate. According to the will, which was for the record, I was to inherit all of his belongings. Why they would make such threats was beyond me. I believe that suing was a poor idea when they brought it up. Even if they went to court, my husband had made it very plain that they would never prevail. They blamed me for not being able to make amends and for not talking to their kid for 8 years, but I didn't buy that line of thinking. They thought I had swayed my husband to their detriment and made sure they would have nothing left over. I ordered them to go because I was so horrified, and then I drove home. My husband had requested me to show his parents the film if they attended the funeral, but I was so furious at the moment that I was unable to think clearly and forgot everything about it. Prior to returning home, I had entirely forgotten about it. Yes, I do recall working with him to prepare and film the video a month before to his death. I was aware that the in-laws would be extremely distressed by this film. After taking a few days off, I made the decision to inform my in-laws about how they had handled their kid and that it was their own fault, not mine. I made the decision to get in touch with them a few days following the funeral. However, I made the decision to go straight to the in-laws' house to show them the video because we were both refusing to talk. They were taken aback by my arrival, but I calmly went up to them and said that I had come to bring them something my husband had left for them. They had a strong desire to keep me out, but I could also sense that they were curious in what I had to say. They were interested in the material, though, so we all walked to the living room to watch the film. It's possible that my spouse anticipated his parents would bother me after he passed away. He had set up all the required legal procedures for this reason. He was critiquing his parents' previous behavior in the video. He described how Cindy was given preferential treatment by his parents, who always put her before him. He also discussed how his parents mistreated him while he was in high school. His parents partied all day and night instead of covering any of the costs of his college education. However, they never cut corners and spent thousands of dollars on his sister whenever she began something. His parents often made comparisons between him and Cindy when he started his first job. Cindy was earning somewhat more than my husband at the time, but it was completely intolerable that his parents would ignore his business aspirations. They avoided speaking to my husband after he received a cancer diagnosis and never acknowledged their errors. They have no right to gripe to me now. My spouse believed that it was most appropriate to leave them with nothing. He warned them in the video to never come before me again, and they shouldn't care too much about his passing because they had been essentially missing from his life. In a similar vein, my spouse did not worry about his parents or relatives because, to him, I was the only real family. My heart was touched by those words, and I uncontrollably started crying. His remarks about me at the end of the film had a particularly powerful effect. And by the time it was over, the in-laws were speechless. Even if you sue, I will use this video as evidence that my husband cut off relations with you and left nothing behind. I replied calmly as I got to my feet when it was over. His parents should not hold anybody else responsible for their years of abject treatment of him. I hope they realize that my influence or manipulation did not cause this circumstance. They refused to accept this and accused me of being heartless for showing them the film while they were still mourning the death of their kid. They also insisted that I had altered the deceased's face on the video using an editing tool, continuing to make up absurd ideas to avoid taking responsibility. They accused me of being selfish and claimed I didn't deserve what my spouse had left me when I replied that I didn't have to prove anything. When they accused me, they were perplexed. I've since questioned if showing them the video was appropriate. Even though my husband had always been mistreated by the in-laws, they were unquestionably his family. I kind of regret showing my in-laws the video. They still haven't gotten in touch with me a week after I saw them. They were enraged the day I left their home, accusing me of threatening to halt the litigation, trying to harm them on purpose, or encouraging them to challenge the will. They are allowed to continue in that way if they so want. But since they would not benefit from it, it would merely be a waste of their time and money. I won't stop them, though, if they plan to disregard the video's substance and go to court. Since then, I've been too busy every day to give this issue any thought. My main priority at the moment is to concentrate on my work. I have to get over my sadness and confront practical difficulties and future issues. My parents' support is a true blessing. It has been really beneficial for me to spend these past several days with them. My parents do all of the housework when I get home from work, fatigued. By taking up all of my husband's duties, including grocery shopping and bill payment, my father has supported me. My mother does all of the cooking and cleaning since I am a mindless person. Our previous housekeeper had to depart for personal reasons. My parents came to my place the next day with their baggage after I told them about it a few days before. I sincerely appreciate my parents' generosity and am pleased that they genuinely care about me. However, it appears that my in-laws have made the decision to challenge my husband's will. My husband's attorney told me about this. Even if they lose the lawsuit, though, I don't think it will be a big deal. I was shocked to receive an email from them stating that my strategy for chasing them away was incorrect. They believed that the video had no effect on their ability to accomplish their objectives. Since my husband was their blood related before he became my partner, they believed that all he had created should inevitably transfer into their hands. They think their claim to his estate is stronger. In addition to claiming his property, they also maintain that they have a right to the company's shares that they believe are theirs. However, their sense of entitlement is probably not going to benefit them in the litigation because courts base their decisions on the law, not their feelings. I sent the email to my lawyer because I thought it would be relevant evidence. My parents have been a huge assistance, and I still live with them. In effort to attempt to settle the matter peacefully, my parents have also volunteered to talk to my in-laws. They think that since they are parents, negotiating may make things better. I did, however, let my parents know that I was okay with it, and that I would rather the in-laws pursue the case. I am aware that they will be wasting a great deal of time and money on the case. My true objective is to make my in-laws spend all of their time and money. Friends and acquaintances have been paying visits over the last few weeks to offer their condolences and show their concern. Some people who were unable to attend the burial have contacted me, and I have been so busy answering their messages and attending to my job obligations that I haven't had much time to cope with my emotions. But I was suddenly overcome with tears the other day when I went to my husband's office to get some paperwork pertaining to my job. I really missed my hubby. I could tell him how lonely I felt and how much I loved him, and I could see him standing there. However, it was heartbreaking to realize that it would never happen again. Now, I kept the grief to myself and just cared about making sure our business prospered. I think it pays tribute to my husband's memories. He envisioned us creating a successful life together, and I'm determined to make it happen. The in-laws challenged the will around 2 weeks ago, but nothing substantial has happened as of yet. But yesterday, something unexpected occurred. Cindy sent a message to me. To be honest, given how little we communicate and what her parents are doing right now, I was taken aback. She reached out in a strange way. We don't communicate frequently and aren't very close. She sent me a direct message because I hadn't blocked her. She wanted to discuss and requested if she may visit my residence, according to the content. At first, I was uncomfortable and considered rejecting her and blocking her right away. But I ultimately chose to give her a chance to speak. Given Cindy's desire to get in touch with me, and the possibility that it had something to do with her parents, I thought it was appropriate to have a meaningful chat with her. So I answered and invited her to join me. I wasn't too concerned because my folks were at home. Cindy sent flowers and expressed her sorrow when she arrived. She told me how devastated she was by my husband's death and that the commotion during the burial had prevented her from expressing her feelings. I couldn't speak because her statements were so heartfelt and so unlike the loud, self-centered image I had connected her with during family get-togethers. Given that she had stopped drinking a number of years prior, it was plain from her behavior that she had undergone tremendous transformation. When she eventually came to the crux of the matter, she informed me that it would be extremely uncomfortable and that her parents were attempting to harm me. In order to justify their unwillingness to comply with their demands, the in-laws had made up a number of falsehoods, including the fact that my husband had borrowed money from them to launch his business. The in-laws intended to talk about this issue on social media since they were unable to legally suit me because there was no contract. This strategy was completely stupid, and I couldn't see why they believed it would be successful. But because Cindy told me, I was able to stop this before it happened. Cindy apologized and said she had considered contacting us several times since she had been working on improving herself over the past 5 years. But she hadn't had the bravery for years because of the way she treated her brother in the past. Now that her brother was gone, she wished it was too late. I wasn't sure how to react when she suddenly began to weep, but my father arrived right away to console her, make her some tea, and help her relax. I told her that everything would be okay and that my husband would undoubtedly value her efforts as she was departing, now composed. This appeared to relieve her a little. I don't think what I did was incorrect, even if it took her a while to recognize her errors. At least Cindy was calm again, something the in-laws were unable to do. To be honest, I don't have any resentment toward her anymore. I believed that the in-laws were favoring Cindy and giving her special treatment. But in actuality, they were only spoiling her, and none of their kids really experienced true affection. The fact that they were both so disadvantaged made me feel terrible. They were entitled to a more affectionate existence and nicer parents. I shared what Cindy had told me with my attorney. Finally, we made the decision to do nothing right away. We intended to wait for the in-laws to post anything on social media so we could utilize it later in court. Cindy told me that if it came to that, she would be prepared to testify against her parents. So everything was going well. The post was eventually made on social media by the in-laws. I warned them via email right away that if they did not take down the piece, I would sue them for defamation. They soon recognized they were losing the struggle, even though I was hoping they would just leave it up. Maybe they realized they couldn't win when they saw Cindy was on our side. They swiftly took down the message, but they said that they were still trying to acquire everything from me. I banned their email address and wished them luck since I was getting really sick of putting up with them. The in-laws are now free to behave as they choose. They seem to need it. Therefore, I genuinely wish them luck. They are now alone because Cindy is no longer among them. I'll be watching from a distance to see how they handle this situation.